I think that in working on films, I'm looking for the story. For documentary films, the story is just as even more important than in a fiction film, because it's the life and the what was the struggle. For example, I remember I had a terrible time trying to do this film on Mary Cassatt. I was working on what became the Women in Art series. They ended up calling it the original was Women in Art, but my title was always Women in Art. Obviously, I had to do Mary Cassatt. She was the first really important American woman artist. I had a terrible time finding the story. It wasn't until I read some of her letters that she wrote when she was very young, when she was about 20. And she was passionate about art and her feeling about art. And of course, her struggle was that at that time, and we're talking about, like the 1870s, but the idea of being a serious artist, especially her family was an upper-class Philadelphia family, quite wealthy. There were all kinds of difficulties and hindrances to being a woman artist, but also, both for men and women artists, there were no great museums in America at that time. It really was impossible to see great art unless you went to Europe. Anyway, so she decided she was going to go to Paris. And the film, one of the really fun sequences in the film is the objections of her family. In any case, she went and, of course, became the only American woman or man to be part of the Impressionist group. I think Mary Cassatt was a big product of Victorian and very repressed, and I think she was able to express, and in the film, the woman who is the expert on Mary Cassatt, Adeline Breeskin, talks about that, about the fact that Mary Cassatt was able to express some of her emotions and some of her sensuality in the tactile and the relationship between the mother and child. And this is a picture of I'm with the cameraman. At those days, they were not always called DPs; they were cameramen. And this is Mary Cassatt, of course, is most famous for her mother and child.